Good morning and welcome to BEGrowthDriven. We're talking about social media today. John, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Tell us a little bit, John. When did you start into social media? I know myself, it's probably like Facebook, and that was my entry into it all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the common story. I was actually must have been my freshman year in college, really, when Facebook really started kind of expanding and going further and further into some of the others. I remember, Zanga or a few others, MySpace. Of course, that's gone the way of the dinosaurs. So there's certainly some blog platforms that were out there that were certainly with a social focus, or you could keep blog posts or personal thoughts or whatever, put it out there. But really, Facebook was when you had to have a .edu address to get on there. And that was back in 2004, I believe, 2004, 2005.
Awesome. Well, and some of the ones over time, for example, you look at like MySpace, Snapchat, Pinterest, Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, Tumblr, WeChat, Instagram, WhatsApp, YouTube, Facebook. And then you look at all the, of course, the other new ones that are coming out right now. There's a number of ones that they're not as censored. Maybe people are gravitating to those for various reasons. But when you look at, I was looking at one of the stats on there as far as the number of people using social media platforms from 2004 to 2018. It was like from 0 in 2004 to over 2 billion. In 2018. That was 2018. So if you look at the scale of, I'm looking here at one of the graphs I'm looking at, and it's like from 2015 approximately to 2018, it rose by 1.5 to over 2 billion, right? To almost like 2.5 billion. And you look at the current world population, right? Why is social media taken off like crazy? And current world populations approximately at 2018 was 7.5 billion. So you're looking at a large cross section of the world population being covered on social media, wanting to connect in one way or another on social media. And you look at, you think about some of the different personalities that we see right now that have basically made their name on social media. One that comes to mind is Mr. Beast. So we'll give a shout out to Mr. Beast. I love watching his videos. I love watching how, he's basically grown, his popularity, you could say, by just using social media, right? And there's now business awards based upon simply social media.
Yep.
And it's not going away. What would be some of the strengths that you think, John? As far as where do you see personally yourself, from a salesperson standpoint? We both can talk about this area, and we would love to hear anything from anybody that's watching right now too, is where have you seen the most impact in social media? Like what channel maybe even too?
I think it kind of changes. One thing I did want to go back to is I think, I don't know if we would have the social media impact that would be out there if it wasn't for the advent of the smartphone. Whether that's iPhone, whether that's Samsung, whatever big brand that's out there, I don't know that we would have that dynamic growth with social media platforms if we didn't also have the technology behind it. And I think, there's certainly great ideas that are out there, but you also have to have that piece of technology that makes sense to help it really progress and move forward. I think we're still, there's some quote unquote mature companies that are out there, but we're legitimately talking about something that's less than 20 years old for the most part. And it's changed so much. I think we're still just, at the tip of the iceberg. There's still a lot more to come, with different technologies, especially when 5G takes off and that kind of stuff too. So, I think it depends. I think the biggest impacts that have been out there certainly have been Facebook. I think one of the smart things that they have done is to use it as a platform that, number one, it does allow people to share their personal stories and everything else, but it really, at the end of the day, is just a phenomenal ad platform. And so from a business perspective and a sales perspective, it really allows you to, number one, it's cultivating a lot of the community, the digital community that's on there. And I mean, I always kind of refer to, Google or Facebook as the interstate of the web, right? So,
Right.
Everyone in the United States, we drive on the interstate at some point in time. I mean, it's one of the most one of the most driven on roads or systems that we have in the country, and everybody is on there at some point in time. And I kind of feel that's the same way with Facebook and the big names, YouTube and stuff that are out there. I mean, behind Google, YouTube even has, the largest search. I mean, just the search engine capability on it alone is incredible. And I think, I can't remember the stat exactly, but I mean, there's so many videos that are put up in one day. Like, you or I in our lifetime could not watch all of the content that gets posted in a single day.
Right.
We would have to live multiple, thousands of years in order to consume some of the content that's put out there. And being able to build even smaller communities within that is just an incredible thing. So the fact that everybody's there, but you also have all of these niches that you can really dive into, and it's just really opened up a whole nother avenue for a lot of direct to consumer businesses, and even some business to business type stuff too, for sure.
Without a doubt. Well, if you look at, here's a stat on YouTube. You were talking about, like the amount of content that's being pushed up, right? Just in general. In May of 2019, more than 500 hours of video were uploaded to YouTube every minute.
That's crazy.
So when you think about the amount of content, and if people are going to produce that amount of content, it makes me think it's like there has to be that consumption there, right? Mm-hmm. So like the YouTube user base is estimated about 1.68 billion.
Right.
And this is in 2019. So, among there's a huge opportunity. I was thinking back, when you think about like how have we gathered our news over the years? How have we gathered our information over the years? Back in the day, it was, and still even today, newspaper is a powerful media as far as, how we're going to maybe make our decisions of the environment around us.
Yep.
Right. And of course, that's gone different ways, and it's still very popular media. But you look at something like, social media, and how much the news, broadcast television talks about social media.
Right.
Is that, you know what I mean? And so it goes to show like the importance of it.
Right.
It goes to show the importance of it. Yeah. You look at, of course, we follow, if people haven't caught on yet, in the background there, we got 10X there. So we follow Grant Cardone and the amount of social media content they put out is just tremendous. I know I used to follow a lot of the Cardone guys back on Periscope, and Periscope's one of the channels we're actually pushing BEGrowthDriven. It's maybe one of the lesser, hyped or maybe focused on channels, but it's definitely one of the channels worth pushing to. YouTube, we're pushing the same thing out to YouTube. Because it's content that's out there. And of course, we're pushing this to Facebook as well, where most of our people are watching us right now.
Right.
And so these channels allow you that opportunity. It allows people basically to create their own stage and take the stage.
Right.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
And so, without a doubt, social media has been one of the most powerful. We were hoping to actually have a guest on today, Dylan Maxwell, but he was, for some other reason, was not able to make it there today with us. But we nonetheless wanted to make sure that we showed up and talked about it. One of the things we can share too, as far as like First Direct, one of the things that we do here, even though we're kind of a smaller organization, is, we push out on social media on a regular basis. It's there's not a day that's going by where we're not publishing something out there on social media. And that's really to grow attention. If you look at the, ClickFunnels, for example, ClickFunnels, the fundamentals of that rely heavily on social media traffic. Right. You look at what can be defined or identified about someone's behavior based upon simply, what they follow on social media. So LinkedIn, for example, is one that I think we're going to see start growing substantially. I don't know what are your thoughts? What's been your experience, John? Because you post a lot on social media.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess before I say that, one thing I will say, anybody that's looking into social media, whether you're getting started or whether maybe you've had a substantial business, but you're still moving into, you've gotten your website up, you've gotten all that stuff ready, but you're trying to move into more of the social media stuff to really get a lot of your core message out there. And it's always good to just start with something, start with one to go, but you will have to understand that at some point, in order to really feel the impact of it, you're going to have to be on multiple platforms, and you're going to have to be very disciplined about it. It's not just, maybe if you're using it as a personal use, it's kind of every now and then you see a post or something strikes you a certain way or makes you feel a certain emotion, and so you want to be able to reflect that back into the platform that you're on. But when it comes to actually doing business and getting your message out there, you got to be disciplined, and you're going to have to start thinking more comprehensively about what social media platforms that you're going to be using. And I just think that's a smart way to go. But you got to get started somewhere, and I think it's more important to develop the discipline and the consistency first before really trying to expand with the multitudes of options that are out there. Certainly, I think LinkedIn. There's certain we don't know. Let's put it that way. We don't know what the maturity is of the social media market. You can look back at other industries and say that there's maturity in certain markets that have happened that have been out there. I just think there's certain changes that occur within Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn just based on the purpose of what they're able to do.
Right.
With LinkedIn being the more professional platform, and even as we've seen, that's not always the case, but I certainly think it is one that has just another element that's there for the business to business type of person. There is a much more professional image that's out there. And I think every social media platform has a little bit of its own personality when it comes to how it interacts with the world. And that's based on how, what the original, I guess, inception of the idea even was, even though that can change over time. But I certainly think LinkedIn is truly going to grow quite a bit. I'm excited to see some of the other platforms and stuff that are coming out there as well. I mean, you just even look at TikTok for even business owners and stuff too, whether it's doing a dance for the next sale that you made or whatever too. I mean, there's some just very interesting and very unique ways to really, show off, part of your personality, or at least, even if maybe it's somewhat of a manufactured personality, because that certainly can be the case too when you're building a brand. But
what do you think stops a lot of business owners? I mean, as you and I talk to business owners, we've talked about, and we're actually going to be bringing on one of our gals here too that is involved heavily, like with our personal social media. What do you think kind of is a hesitancy for business owners to really get involved in social media? I'll share some of mine, but I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think it's similar to any consumer. Like if they walk into, a toy store, they walk into somewhere else or whatever the case might be, the fact that you have so many options, the fact that you have so much information that's out there, you have so many different strategies, even on one platform that's there, it is very hard to really gain a full grasp of what's going on there. And plus, one of the Robert Kiyosaki's talked about it a couple of times, but what we've seen, as urbanization and industry, the industrial revolution kind of happened, you saw a lot more urbanization, people moving into, cities and having companies that are much more where thousands of people are working in one physical location, where they used to be a very flat kind of economy where everybody kind of owned, for the most part, their own land. It was more hand to mouth type stuff. I think right now, at least one of the trends that I see, and, granted, I'm not the preeminent world expert on industry or economics or anything like that. But
come on.
But I think we're seeing a flattening of people's ability to be able to produce an income even from their home or whatever the case might be. You can find 1,000 people as a part of your tribe, sell them a product and make a very decent living doing that. And with that, you have a lot of different people who are also selling different social media strategies that are out there. So again, not only do you have the number of platforms, you also have a number of options to look at as far as people who are out there with different strategies, and they do it the best way, they do it this way. And it really, I mean, there's almost too much. It's almost information overload.
It becomes that way. Would you say, like, is social media like the win all to drive business and sales, for every business? I mean, is it a win all?
Absolutely not. No. I mean, I think it's
yeah. I was like, John, that's not right. I thought you were in the other direction there for a second. So
yeah, I mean, no. I mean, there's no way that it can be. I would even say that if your entire business model is built around one platform, you don't have a winning business model, because literally the only thing that needs to happen is one algorithmic change, and now your traffic's down. All you got to do is say the one wrong thing, and they can shut an entire account down. There's no reason why you need to be just on one platform, having one platform of failure. If something happens to change. And it's not even just social media. I mean, Amazon's still sending direct mail pieces.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So here's what I've seen too, is a lot of times, there's, and this is no knock to those out there that say they're an agency and say that that Instagram is the only way to go, that you got to get your Instagram followers. Instagram has its place, right? If you're selling clothing, fashion, food, those types of things, that's not the total list, right? Obviously, Instagram is going to be a fantastic place to say, hey, look at what's on the menu today. Look at this item. Look at this item. If you're sharing a tangible product, it is like one of the critical locations where you should be sharing that information. And really, it's like the tools that you need is that right there, just the phone. And simply, like, if you're a small business right now and you're trying to get a stab in the market, let's say, for instance, you're a furnace repair guy. You should do a little video, maybe on Instagram, do a quick live. Don't obviously give away the client's location or anything personal in that respect. But what you should do is make that short video that says, hey, here's a common problem we found. This is how we fix it, right? Don't think away. I think a lot of people worry that they're going to give away trade secrets or company secrets. And obviously there's some of those, but you need to not be as concerned about those main things. It's more so about getting the content out there.
Right.
And that's something I know Skylar will agree, is just getting the content out there. Where we've seen, for example, even internally ourselves grow is where we've consistently done it, even when there are no, what seems to be like little viewers, little likes, those types of things. It's those, it's that consistency really that starts to break down the wall. And obviously you can't just simply post the video and that's it. You got to continue to make other noise to make social media work for you. But what it can create is this funnel of information or of possibilities for your business. So actually, hey, we're going to have Skylar join us here too real quick. Yeah. We're going to add her. We're bringing Skylar on. Let me readjust our screens here. Good morning, Skylar. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Good. So Skylar, just to introduce everybody to Skylar actually works here at First Direct. She manages all of our social media on the backside. She manages all of our content strategy. If you're reading our daily vibe, she is the gal behind that. She is the mastermind behind all of that. Skylar, tell us a little bit about as far as like how powerful is social media in relation to business. I mean, you're researching that on a regular basis.
Yeah, sorry. Working from home.
Okay. Working from home, and this is impromptu. We completely pulled her in, and she is a fantastic sport. Everybody give her a lot of commendation for that one there. So thank you, Skylar.
Yeah, I think social media is one of those things where with any marketing strategy, you have to have all of your pieces, and social media is becoming a larger piece of that. And like you guys talked about earlier, all the different channels having, knowing where different parts of your audience is, all of that is very important. But the thing about social media, unlike maybe direct mail, is that it's very trial and error, and you don't really know what's going to happen. I heard somebody say that good decisions come from experience.
Right.
It comes from bad decisions. So you don't necessarily know what you're going to do, and you have to kind of figure it out as you go, which is kind of part of the fun part, but also part of the challenge of using social media in business.
Right. Well, and looking at like some of the different channel, depending upon what type of product you're offering, some of those channels might be a better fit than others. Like Instagram might be a better fit for your, 50 to 64-year-olds, versus Facebook or Snapchat. Obviously, you're not going to reach those people maybe on Snapchat or Twitter or TikTok. But when it comes to YouTube, I was looking at one of the graphs here that from our World in Data stats, and it was showing as far as like that 65 years plus. If you're trying to reach a senior market, like the two best platforms, and I think this is from 2018, but the stat still holds true. I think it's going to be YouTube and Facebook. YouTube and Facebook. And I don't know how many times my father sends me videos that he wants me to watch on something cool that he found on YouTube, right? And it's so easy to just simply share that and get that out. But I think Instagram is one of those climbers. And when you think about like the stats that you see, like even for our business, what do you see, Skylar?
Yeah, Instagram definitely. I think for us, Facebook is very exciting because it has we have groups and we have lots of different ways for engagement, but Instagram also has engagement, which is that's the most important thing. It doesn't necessarily matter like if people see it, but they don't care. So being able to communicate with people and being able to have that engagement through Instagram stories and through posting, that's very important.
Right. I'm looking at like some of our social stats, and we see that some of the highest engagement across a couple of our brands on Facebook still. Right. And this is even with, everybody saying there's a mass exodus of Facebook, and really, the cool thing that I've seen though too is just the amount of ebbs and flows. I always think of it visually in my mind as like the ocean. And it's like the waves coming in. You see these ebbs and flows. A lot of people panic when the water recedes in one area, but they got to remember it'll always come back, right? But then there's something I think it was maybe you touched on too, as far as like kind of it's trial and error, but you really got to think as far as like where the content you're putting out. Wouldn't you agree that as far as like the content you're putting out, where is that person you're touching in their journey?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. You're going to put different content to different places, knowing who your audience is on each location.
Right. Well, and now social media by itself, from a marketing strategy standpoint, where we've seen some of the best success even too, and where it really, really works, a lot of people are dumping a lot of their ad budgets, for example, into Facebook, Instagram, and they're using that as their main channel, and that can work. However, there's some other better ways, maybe with using those platforms as really kind of like a retargeting platform. What would be your research on that, Skylar?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think Facebook people, because it's often separated out from the other ad platforms, that people are like, okay, this is Facebook. We understand Facebook. We can just use Facebook and then not think about the other ways of doing it.
Right.
But I think that's where your audience, for the most part, is. Isn't it like Facebook's the 5th biggest country? If it was just the people, and that slowly climbs up the list. So that's where people are. So using that as retargeting and using that in that way makes a lot of sense.
Well, if you think about like the journey of the individual, a lot of times think about how people search, think about how each of us searches, right? And I think there's probably some rather consistent ways we search. Yeah, you may go end up on Facebook to find the product, but a lot of times you're using a search engine like Google or Yahoo or MSN, or one of those, right? Mm-hmm. And you're searching for the item you're looking for. You land on a few different sites. You maybe filter out the top ads and go down to maybe the top ranked pages because the pages have what you're looking for, or maybe there's a picture or a video that catches your attention. But then a lot of times the behavior of people is they'll go look at the site. They'll maybe click on an ad, maybe while they're watching news or weather. They'll click on an ad because it catches their attention and that ad's well placed. But then what a lot of times where this fails for people when they spend money like on Google ads is they fail to do their Facebook or Instagram or Twitter retargeting of those individuals that are there. Because here you got to think of like the mindset of where somebody's at. When they're in the hunting mode, when they're searching the search engines for it, they just want that information found quick and concise. When they're in the more casual mode, maybe more relaxed mode, maybe while they're on a social, like Instagram or Facebook, that attention is different. And so obviously the ads have to be different. I was thinking of even too, recently when I upgraded my iPhone, it's like the case I got's a UAG case, and I bought it straight off of an Instagram ad. It's what they did is I searched, Google, because I wanted to go look for, hey, what's a good case for an iPhone 12, and they hit me with a retarget ad on Instagram. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I want. So I went ahead and bought it. So the transaction happened there, all because they took the time to actually implement a retargeting strategy, right?
Yeah, and they've said that's one of the biggest changes this year with the way that people buy things is that people are kind of almost mercenary in the way that they purchase things. Like, we know what we want, and then we go and we look for it, and then we buy it. But sometimes we don't actually buy it. We'll Google it, we'll do the research, we do all of that information on our own, and then we kind of fizzle away. But when you retarget through social media, it's like, oh, here's this thing that you already know that you want, and here's a very pretty picture of it, and you've already done the research, you can feel justified in buying it. Because
Right.
a lot of us, we're smart, we know how social media ads work, and it can feel kind of like, oh, that's an ad, I don't want to click on that, I don't want to. But if it's something that you personally have already know that you're going to buy, then it's not as scary. And so retargeting that way can make it easier to push that path to purchase.
So now here's another area too that I wanted to share that oftentimes gets overlooked when people are running ad campaigns on social platforms. If you've ever done ads on Facebook, throw us an FB in the comments. If you're rewatching this or you're watching now, but what a lot of times gets overlooked is using external data to help identify your ideal audience inside the platforms. And a lot of people say, well, doesn't Facebook have all that information? Don't they? And the reality is they do have a lot of that information, but they're also missing other bits of information, or they may have all of our contact information, but what they're missing is maybe some of the other pieces of information that come together that really identify who we're after, maybe to sell a product to or service to. I was thinking of just simply like location data. People maybe have heard the term geofencing. And what geofencing is literally, drawing an imaginary, think of the wireless dog collar. That sounds really bad, I know, but think of the wireless dog collar, that's buried in the ground, and that's a geofence around a property anywhere you want to put it virtually instantly, right? And you can go back in time and grab data and use this. And that's just simply powerful. Also the retargeting. And when you're able to target in on your audience, there's an article coming out on our weekly Vibe, right? That talks about how to personalize our marketing to make it less creepy. And why is that? Tell us a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Well, because we all have said that, like, oh no, they're listening. We get scared. I mean, I just got an ad for Legos on my Instagram, which I have never bought Legos before. I don't think I'm probably their target audience, but I had just had a massive conversation about it, and I happened to have Googled Star Wars Legos, and they retargeted me pretty much immediately. And it was jarring at first. You're kind of like, oh, they know things about me, and it's kind of freaky, but there's ways to do that personalization. We all want personalization through our social media because social media feels personal. It's like a one-on-one conversation between the brand. And so you want to have that with your customers. And as customers, we expect that. We expect our brands to know us personally in the way that we know them, but not in a way that feels like they're listening to us or they're tracking us or things like that. And there's a very fine line on how to use that.
Right. There's an excellent case study out there. That's maybe some people have heard of this one. It's the Target case study, right? And they use data. I mean, just brilliantly. I got to say that, just brilliantly. They were able to identify based upon what people were buying that if what was happening in the household. Okay. And basically, to sum up the case study, is they identified that they figured out that they could identify that if someone bought this, and this product, that it indicated most likely to a high degree that someone in the household was pregnant, or this particular person using this credit card was pregnant, right? And the situation was, it was a young lady that was still living at home, and her father was very upset about the piece. And come to find out, his daughter was pregnant. So it all goes back to kind of like the journey. Now, marketers, some of the big box marketers have figured out that, like you said, you have to make it a little less creepy, right? You can't all of a sudden flip on, from one type of an ad to another type of an ad right away. You got to kind of paint out like the journey. Where's the customer? Where do we want to get them to? And where are they at upstream, you could say. It's kind of, think of like a salmon run, right? They're coming in and, whatever. You got to think about where they're at upstream and what lures you might be able to drop in there to either catch them there or keep them going the direction you want. And then that's really it. And it's a funnel. It's a sales funnel process that you can implement on your social media content. The nice thing too, you said earlier too, as far as like testing a lot of things on social media, it's trial and error. You don't know. That's actually an excellent time to sometimes throw out a new message. Hey, let's see if this works. Let's see if we get a lot of views, a lot of engagement on it. So
yeah, and people want to be a part of the conversation with brands. They feel like brands are a part of them, and so they kind of want to be a part of the brand as well. So you can even say things like, hey, we're testing a new audience. Do you guys want to help? Or we're testing a message. What do you think of this? And then therefore people can be more part of the conversation and can help shape the brand as well. And it heightens engagement as well.
Right. Well, and you you actually wrote an article on this. It's the What's Working in Marketing 2020. And you talked about the customer experience driven marketing, right? And that personalization is key. And I remember there was a meeting that I was at, part of a VDC meeting in New York City, and that was actually when it was basically a big data summit where we were talking about how to use big data in marketing, right? And it was really highlighted there, the same things that are being echoed now, not only in 2020, what's worked, but also what's going to work in 2021. So is that personalization. If you can personalize. Now, when we say personalization, we don't mean that everything has to have the person's first name on it, right? That's kind of the creepy factor, right?
Yeah, that can quickly fall into the creepy.
Yeah. If they get a mail piece at home with their first name on it saying Dear John or Dear Skylar, right? That's different because it would assume that they would have your name. But when you're personalizing the journey, it's kind of ClickFunnels has an example when they're teaching some of their funnel practices. They talk about, hey, if you're trying to get after people that suffer from neuropathy, right? You're not going to say, hey, do you have neuropathy? You're going to give something similar. Hey, do you suffer from back pain, or this type of pain? And so what it does is a little less creepy. It's an easier conversation to have. And someone will say, well, yeah, I think I do. In fact, my back's hurting right now. What's this about? What could that be? And the journey there, when you think about that journey, is it's actually painting out a way that person can kind of raise their hand without feeling like they're being cornered by advertisements in that respect. I know we've seen that a lot too. It's like, and John, you mentioned earlier as well, as far as some of the restrictions like Facebook has, if you go too far, things like that. We've seen that. We've had ads shut down. we've had accounts locked up for a while because, maybe we pushed the envelope a little bit too far on some of the content. But I've also seen like on social media where we've pushed the envelope really, really far with well-targeted information. And, it really worked well. It really, really worked well. What are you seeing? Okay, so Skylar, on the research that you've done, what are you seeing in 2021? How can people get ahead of the curve 2021?
Well, because you never quite know what's going to happen in the world or how things are going to change. So it's always, a little bit of a guessing game in things. But the personalization and doing customer experience marketing is, I think, going to be the biggest thing. And then also making sure you're pulling in your other channels properly, using direct mail and still using out-of-home digital display ads, and understanding how to connect all of that. That is going to be the biggest thing, especially as things open up and people start to move out in the world more. That's going to be a big factor.
Well, there's some really cool stuff that can be done like on the digital front. And a lot of times people think of like these options are only available to like the big box companies, and they're really not. We work with companies all the time here as far as helping them do digital out of home display. That's when you're at the gas station and the video starts to play as you're pumping your gas, or you're walking in the airport or at the shopping mall and there's clearly an advertisement that's running. That's that digital out of home. So you think about how you're being targeted right there. If you're a business owner, if you're a marketer, those things are possible. And I think really just kind of thinking about the journey, your customers are going to be on social media, but your other advertising has to work in sync with that. So if it's the mail piece they're getting at home, does your Facebook page mimic the offer, or talk about it, or has it been hyping it for a couple of weeks before the piece hit, right? And if you're sending email marketing, does that email marketing have consistency to it on what it's expecting them to do, right? So you can very quickly go into that realm of where you're going to create confused minds, and then obviously we don't want to do that. You can create your social media strategy. What's the best thing for any business, do you think, that has not started on social media? What's the best way to get started?
Think about your audience. You probably, if you have a business, you already know to some extent who your audience is. And even if that is just, what would I want to see? That is the biggest thing. And then just try as many different things as possible. You can't get analytics or data or information about how it's working unless you've tried things. So just push as much content as possible out and try different times of day and different formats, and then you can kind of go from there.
Awesome.
I think one thing that we've talked about a little bit, but the trial and error, the statistics. What are some of the most important statistics they should? So obviously it matters to put consistency in getting that marketing out, to get that content out there. Some content, even bad content, is better than no content, right? So like, what are some simple things, analytics that they should be looking at to kind of decide, hey, what's working better than some of the other pieces of content? And when should somebody maybe double down on a piece of content or try to create more within a certain behavioral kind of characteristic, just because people are engaging with it more?
Yeah, I think, looking obviously at your demographics and all of that stuff is available on every social media platform. They have analytics available if you have a business account. So, just looking at things like your age groups and gender and time of day, when people are most active, and then which things got most engagement at what points in time. You can just look and see what has worked in the past. It's not necessarily rocket science or anything. They can just say, oh, well, this worked. Why did it work? And this also worked. What do those two things have in common?
Right.
Usually it's pretty simple. You're not going to change your message probably that drastically because it's still your message. So you can find out things very simply that way.
Well, you highlighted something there too, like time of day, for example, right? You may find that maybe some posts that you do late at night get lots of engagement, but no conversion, right? Versus, the posts mid-morning get moderate engagement, but they have the highest conversion. That also might help you identify like when you should be sending if you're doing email marketing, when should you send your email message, right? People are going to engage with you more, maybe right there. Maybe that might be the right time to send the message. Or if you're running other ads on other platforms, maybe that's the best time to ramp up your spend at that moment just to do so. So definitely a lot of good things to keep in mind as far as utilizing social media into 2021. I mean, we're not over with 2020 yet, but obviously the dynamics of the playing field have changed. They're definitely, it's a whole different ball game. And if you don't adapt, if you don't do it quickly, and real simply for most business owners out there, most marketers out there, if you're not doing anything in social media, the simplest thing you can do is just simply start, do a video, jump on. Don't worry about it being the best video ever. Don't overthink it. Think of like, what would you say? Like one topic, Skylar, just think of one bullet point of a topic.
Yeah. And if you want to just say something simple, like here's a picture of our office, or here's something that we're doing today,
right,
or here's a thing that we have available. It doesn't necessarily have to be as salesy or targeting or even talking about things, just getting people to understand who you are so that they can begin to connect with you. That's the easiest first step.
Right. People want to see the journey. They want to see the real you, for sure.
Yeah.
Skylar, thank you so much for joining us. I know that was last minute, and you are definitely a tremendous sport for doing so. So I appreciate it. We want to invite everyone back next week. We have Josh and Megan Steinberger. We're going to talk about business, marriage, and family, and how they can all go together and be successful at it. They've actually built multiple successful businesses. They've helped countless couples recover from a number of different struggles and challenges that they've encountered in business. And I can say, myself too. I know my wife Audrey is watching as well. It's not easy, with marriage and business. It's just simply not. Or family and business. It's frankly a difficult thing. So definitely a timely topic. December 8th. Don't miss it, 10 a.m. Eastern. And then the following week, I'm excited about this one as well, or the two following weeks after that. December 15th, we got Ken Walls, Mr. Walls of Wisdom. He's a best-selling author, speaker, consultant, tech expert, advisor. This guy is connected with the who's who, and you want to know him. Jeffrey Gittemeyer, Grant Cardone, got him on speed dial. And then you also have John West. John West, he is a consultancy, management, group, and independent art collaboration expert. Looking forward to him as well. He's definitely the right guy. And he's your kale man. If you're into kale, he's got your kale. He's created a number of very successful businesses. So one of the things we also wanted to share here at Be Growth Driven, our first quarter of 2021, we are going to be bringing to you speakers that are going to be talking about the topic simply of rising above. Those that have actually paved the way. We think about a lot of the individuals that have paved the way for, whatever it may be, challenging circumstances. Look at the ones that have just ground through, the difficulties, no matter what they were, and they didn't give up. So starting in the first quarter of 2021, we wanted to really kind of bring in the content that's going to give you the fuel that you can actually bring, knock the year out of the park. John, what do you think about that?
No, I'm excited for it. I think, we had talked about it the other day. I mean, there are always going to be, maybe we didn't expect what was going to happen in 2020. We don't even know what's going to happen in 2021. And the thing is, it could be, God forbid, but 2021 could be worse than 2020. The thing is everything that matters about what you're going to do is about how you can rise above. And that's the whole point of seeing, hey, what are some of the ways people have done that in the past? And how can we make sure that you get the mindset and you get the tools and the resources you need in order to take on whatever challenge? Because it may not be a pandemic. It might just be a crisis in your own business because you have a bad partner. You have something that does go wrong. We know that. Not that we want to focus on it, not that we want to, celebrate it or wallow in the pity that's there, but we want to make sure that we take it as a reality and we know the steps and actually to move past it.
Right. Well, I mean, 2021 could be the year of the Sharknadoes. I mean, for all we know. Right. murder hornets, Sharknadoes. I mean, it could be just all of it combined. And I add on maybe 12 months of winter. I'm not asking for that. I don't want that. I'm already tired of winter. And it hasn't even really snowed yet.
Yeah.
So we appreciate everyone jumping on. Skylar, thank you again very much for jumping on. We appreciate you very much and all the hard work you do here at First Direct. Everyone be sure to give Skylar a big round of applause in that respect. And again, next week, we are looking forward to Josh and Megan Steinberger. We're going to talk about business and marriage and the business of it with Josh and Megan. And so don't miss that. That's going to be 10 a.m. Eastern. We appreciate you guys all. And we will catch you next Tuesday, December 8th.